Hi, everyone. Welcome to this interview. And today we are going to discuss confidence in general and confidence for non-native speakers as well. And I want to introduce Will, who is a public speaking coach. Will, welcome. You may introduce yourself. By the way, for me, it's the hardest question during the job interview. Introduce myself,
Thank you, Gleb. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here. So yeah, my name's Will. I'm a public speaking coach. I have been doing this now full time for 3 years. So I've been helping people with confidence issues around public speaking, with presentations, with interviews as well. And just a little bit about me, my background before that. I have close to 20 years experience in the corporate world, mainly within sales and business development. So, of course, it was my job to speak for a living. So, sales calls, business negotiations, sales pitches, networking events, anything you can imagine. And I've also traveled quite a lot. I love speaking to people. I love social interactions. I get energy from speaking to people. So, it's just a good fit for me to have this job now.
I see. Cool. So maybe already some tips about introducing yourself. So what do you have for someone who is not confident with that? Like me, for example, I really feel awkward to like when people ask me about tell me about yourself briefly. So I just starting to be to be really nervous. So.
Yeah, it's a good question, Gleb. I think the issue that a lot of people find with that first question, there are a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the first question. Okay. People tend to be the most nervous at the beginning, right? So the magic number tends
I
to
agree.
be around 1.5 to 2 minutes, usually is the height of maximum anxiety. We first start, the heart's beating a bit faster, we're a bit anxious, and after sort of 1.5, 2 minutes, we tend to relax a little bit. That's the same in a presentation, an interview, a speech, anything that you're doing. So, for example, one thing you can do just before the interview, you can practice, right? You can record yourself or you can just speak to yourself, right? And you can answer that question to yourself. Tell me about yourself. So, in theory, it's then not the first time, it's the second or third time that you've started speaking. And then number two is to have a clear answer. So the number of different answers that I hear from people, and they sort of change depending on the interview, and it's all different. You can have a pretty standard answer for this. Yes, you might be changing a couple of exact examples depending on the type of job, but in general, I think you can practice quite well and you can have quite a clear answer for this.
Yeah, I agree. So you may rehearse it quite well, yeah, and just turn it on when you ask the
Yeah.
question like this. But still, I feel weird, especially during the job interview, because the person you are talking to definitely has read your CV, and
Yeah.
he or she knows already like everything that she's supposed to know about you. Yeah, and still they ask this question, and that's usually gets me nervous a little bit, you see. So yeah, and it's always feels artificial for me. So here maybe you have some tips how to make it more natural, more authentic during this setup of a job interview.
Yeah, absolutely, Gleb. So just on your point there, it's not that they don't know anything about you. Like you say, they've read your resume, right? But it is the first place to start, and they see it as the first introduction, as the first impression. Okay, so it's important to
Makes
summarize,
sense.
in your words, that you can communicate well, that you're a relaxed person, that you're a confident person. So that's why this trips up a lot of people, because they feel anxious, they feel nervous. It's the first question. You have to answer it well. Some people don't answer it well. So yeah, it's a difficult situation. I do understand what you mean. Number one, I would say, in terms of like a first impression, would be okay, I know it sounds easy and obvious, to try to be as relaxed as you can. So one technique, it's called labeling. So psychologists call it labeling. Don't see it as an interview or the first question as an interview and, I need to make a great impression and this and that. For me, I try to see it as just saying hi to someone, having a conversation, right? Now, I've done it so many times, right? I've spoken to thousands of people at this stage that I don't really care and I actually enjoy interviews because, I can talk to someone, I can introduce myself, right? So that's one technique maybe, because when people see it as it's an interview, it's the first question, now I'm nervous, now I need to act in a certain way. Okay, for me, it's just, absolutely, David. Thanks for asking. Yeah, my name's Will and da-da-da, right? I just sort of go into the automatic mode of just talking about myself. Does that answer your question? What do you think of that, Gleb?
Yes, it's helpful. Yeah, and to be more relaxed. And I like you said that the purpose of this question is to kind of understand whether you person who is relaxed or not. Yes, and when I join a job interview, usually I'm not a relaxed person, that's for sure. You see, so probably that's why it's hard for me to answer this question, and I usually tend to jump into business. Yeah, so I'm really anxious. I want this stage to over as fast as possible. Speaking about this introduce yourself question, and I'm trying to jump right into business and discussing their position, the problems they are facing, etc. So that's where I shine, kind of. As a professional, I know what to do, and that's interesting for me. Yeah. So here. It's like kind of a necessary small talk that kind of prepares you for the main conversation, right? Yeah, and we kind of it's we should learn to do it. Yeah, so and I'm struggling with this for sure.
It's a really interesting point, Gleb. And maybe it's a cultural difference because, I've spoken to quite a few people from Russia and Eastern Europe and other places, and they say something similar. They struggle with the small talk. And some people go as far as to say small talk doesn't exist in my culture, right?
Yeah.
It's a waste of time. It's fake. I just want to get straight to the business. Now, my argument is...
fake. That's the right word. Yeah, it feels like, for me, very often it feels like super fake. Yeah.
Interesting. So for me, my point is small talk is so important for two main reasons. Number one is it's part of the culture, particularly in Europe, America, Australia. It's just normal and it breaks the ice, if you're familiar with the term.
Breaks the ice. Yes, totally.
Yeah, exactly. So you're awkward at the beginning. So by a little bit of small talk, it breaks the ice. Both people should feel a bit more comfortable. But also what it does is, as I said at the beginning, you have sort of a 1 to 2 minute window where you feel anxious, where you feel nervous. If you can get that anxiety out of the way through small talk instead of your first answer and first question, that's so much better. So that's why I'm a big believer in small talk for 1 or 2 minutes. Hey, something simple. It doesn't have to be some huge, deep philosophical question and, this huge conversation. It's just, hey, Gleb, how are you? Saturday today. How's your weekend going? Yeah, great. But you can do this the same in an interview. All right. People see an interviewer as, this big boss, this very important person. I need to be so serious. I need to be so professional. No, it's kind of, I think, the opposite. Okay, it might be different in Russia, but in general, I think it's the opposite. Hi, David. It's great to meet you. How are you? Yeah, look, thanks for the messages. Great to finally be here today. How's your day going? Right? Have you had a busy week? Do you have many other interviews? Any plans? Okay, awesome, cool. And then we start the interview. And most people appreciate that. Most people will have a good conversation.
You might also think about a small talk as about a dry run before the conversation. Yes, so you are kind of warming up. Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
as you said, like small talk is not something serious, and most people treat it as a warm up, actually. Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
but usually it's combined with the first impression. Yeah. But I
Yes.
think that having this in mind, that the small talk is a dry run, we can lower our anxiety about it. So everyone kind of understands that we are just connected or just met, and we are going through the warm up. Yeah. So and you can fix like whatever errors you make during the small talk, the small errors, I mean, or some weird stuff. So people expect to see it from you if you are not a professional public speaker, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Gleb. And it's important to keep in mind that this is part of the first impression, because people get obsessed with, I need to be so professional, I need to have all the qualifications, all the experience, blah, 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 then I have the job. Not necessarily. A big part of whether someone gets a job is if they are a fit for the organization, a cultural fit. If they think people will like them, they'll fit into the team, they're a good person, they're a nice person, they're friendly, they're relaxed. So if you start an
yes.
interview and you're all stiff and you're all serious and let's get into business straight away, right? Versus, hi David, how are you? Looks great to see you. How's your week been going? That's an impression that, oh, I think this person is going to be liked. I think he's going to talk to other people in the team. He's going to be friendly, right? He's going to help out. That, for me, that's a good first impression as well.
Yeah, he is going to be easygoing person, yeah, and not like someone who is constantly nervous, yeah, and hard to talk to. Yeah, so and that's like and here the problem that usually, like, after a while you become relaxed, yeah. So here during the first impression you make you may make a wrong first impression, right, and convey the idea that you are a very nervous person and not relaxed, you see. But and that's also kind of, it's create a vicious circle here, yeah. So your anxiety gets bigger and bigger. Yeah. By the way, speaking about first impression, maybe here it's connected to tell me about yourself question, yeah. But let's talk about this topic more, because I like it, yeah. And I think if you go through this phase successfully, that creates a foundation for the whole interview, right? So do you have any other tips for creating a good first impression?
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, I'd recommend a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Have you heard about it? Have you read it?
That's the classics, yeah. Yes, totally, yeah. And I have read it at some point. I don't, maybe 10 years ago, yeah. And I don't remember the like particular tips from this book, but it definitely influenced me at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you haven't read it, or if someone in your audience hasn't read it, I would highly recommend it. I'd say it's the first place to start, and there's some really, really useful tips and tricks in there. So, but just to give you a few now, Gleb, pretty sort of obvious. I'd say smile a little bit. So again, some people get a bit serious,
Yes.
and I see this all the time. We're having a normal conversation, and then as soon as I say, okay, let's practice a presentation, or let's have a mock interview, suddenly smile's gone, super serious, okay? Particularly at the beginning. I don't mean smile the whole time. You're not a circus performer, right? But certainly at the beginning, hi, David, how are you? Looks nice to meet you. A little bit of smiling at the beginning. That's a good first impression. Using someone's name, I think that's important. And again, it could be a cultural issue, because I've had a few people tell me, particularly from the Middle East, I'm not sure about Russia, you can tell me, but certainly from the Middle East, some people say, oh, but it's rude, right? If I know the person and I'm saying their name often, then it's rude and it might be seen as patronizing. So, okay, there might be some slight cultural differences, but in general, if you're using someone's name, not too much, obviously, but 2, 3, 4 times per conversation, it shows that you're interested in them. It shows you've remembered their name, right? You feel a bit closer to that person. So I would highly recommend in an interview, again, not too many times, 2, 3, 4 times, maybe mention their name a few times. I think this is good. How do you feel about those? Have you done those yourself?
I'm definitely struggling with this, and I'm rarely call a person by his or her name, and I usually use it in the beginning and in the end in my practice. So when it's kind of it adds a warmth to the greetings or to saying goodbye. You see, that's how I feel it. Yeah, and here I just remember that when I was reading the book about how to win friends. I went to Goodreads a website and read some reviews about this book. And the most popular reviews there are bad ones. You see, so people write that this is so artificial. You fooling people you are talking to. Yeah, and I want to ask you how would you answer a review like this? What would be your answer to this?
Well, firstly, Gleb, you can't please everybody. It would be the best book. It could be the best book in the world. There'll be someone who doesn't agree, someone who thinks it's rubbish, right? Now, firstly, there are people who are a bit more closed-minded. So maybe you're not expecting this answer, but are you familiar with the term? I think it was Carol Dweck who came out with closed mindset and growth mindset.
I haven't heard about this writer. I think, right? He's a writer or a philosopher. But I definitely know these terms: closed mindset and growth mindset. So that's interesting. I want to hear. I want to hear the rest of the argument. That's super interesting.
Yeah. So a closed mindset, for anyone who doesn't know, is essentially someone who thinks that they can't learn anything else. They were born with the intellect, with the knowledge, with the sort of things that they're going to be good at, and you can't really, obviously you can learn things, but you can't really change yourself that much. A growth mindset is the opposite. You can change yourself at any time. You can become anything that you want to become. You can learn anything. You can become fantastic at anything. So that's the first argument. Someone who comes out and says, oh, it's fake and it's rubbish and it's not true. Okay, I would love to find out more about that person. Did they try it? How many times did they try it? Did they read the whole book? Are they open-minded? Because sometimes when I hear things like that, and if you find out some more details, the person maybe hasn't even read the book fully and they haven't even tried it. Because my experience, and it's not from reading a book, it's from speaking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It's from living in China for 5 years. It's from living in Australia for 2 years. It's from traveling the world, I think, over 35 countries at this stage, right? I know this stuff works. Now, it doesn't mean 100% of the time. It doesn't mean I can walk up to anyone in the world, start smiling, and now they're my best friend. No, it's not that simple, but just in general. Okay, most people, I think you could argue that, look, if you smile a little bit, if you say someone's name here and there, if you have a good posture, if you're maintaining good eye contact, generally that's going to be a better impression.
Cool. Yes, I like the answer, especially about that you cannot please everyone. Yeah, and people are going to find something bad about anything you can imagine, right? Yeah, and here, I definitely I totally agree with you here. Yeah, that this book is useful, and even if some techniques seems artificial to you, that's because they are new. Yeah, and it's better to try them and see. And you always can adjust them for yourself. Yeah, for example, calling by the name. Yeah, so for example, for me, I adjusted it like this. I use it in the beginning and in the end of the conversation. Yeah, because before reading this book, I think probably I hadn't even thought about it. But that it's important that that it could help me to have a better conversation, to help a person I'm talking to open more to me. Yeah, because and actually here, even if something feels not completely natural for me, doesn't mean it will not help me. Right, that's how we learn. And by the way, I have this experience with another techniques. They also about speaking. Probably you have heard about the book "Never Split the Difference" by Chris Voss.
I love that book.
That's a book. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I've read it. I've looked at. He's got an online course as well, which I've also looked at. Yeah, Chris Voss is great.
Yeah, I love Chris Voss as well. And for example, one of the main techniques he teaches is mirroring.
Yes.
When you just says back to a person what he or she just said to you. And again, at the beginning, it seemed to me super weird. Yeah, and he also discusses this thing in the book. Yeah, so that's try it. It feels weird. It feels like you are a parrot, right? Right? You're just repeating the same thing back. But it works very well, and actually now I think that I'm using it all the time. I just not noticing it anymore. Sometimes I became aware of it, yeah, and I understand. Wow, that actually helps me to keep the conversation going. Yeah, and then when you get used to it a little bit, you instead of just mirroring, you start to summarize, right? So you are that's artificial intelligence here likes what I'm talking about.
So do I, Gleb.
So so it's you start to summarize back what person says, yeah, and it feels very natural after, like, I may say, small practice. Yeah, so my answer would be very close to yours, like, just give it a chance, make a test period, like a trial run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the issue with most people. I mean, even me, even you sometimes, when we first do something for the first time, it feels weird. It feels uncomfortable. So with small talk, for example, what you said, I hear this pretty much on a daily basis. Oh, small talk's weird. I feel uncomfortable. It feels fake. I don't know. Of course, because you're not used to doing it. Anything you're not used to doing, it feels uncomfortable because it's not in your comfort zone. But then I've had really good results with people who have pushed themselves, and for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, they have pushed the small talk a little bit more with work colleagues, obviously in interviews, but even ordering food in a restaurant. Instead of, I will have the chicken. Hi, how are you today? Wow, what would you recommend? I'm thinking about the chicken. How is the beef? What is your favorite dish? Blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much for your help. Simple stuff like that. Guess what? People become more comfortable now.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, this speaking in the restaurant like this is very weird for me. But by the way, after one of the lessons with you, I tried it. With a waitress I know. Yeah, I tried it, and it worked very well. So I was nervous, and I kind of pushed it out of me. Like, it was maybe a little bit weird because today I'm going to do it, because I was thinking about it for a while, and I said, how are you? Just simple phrase, and the conversation was small and nice. She joked about something, and for her it was completely natural. So at the beginning I thought that she will, like, how are you? What are you talking about? Like, what is your order, right? But it was completely different. She was happy to hear this, and she had some fun. So that was great. And I was really happy. I tried this, and I was proud of myself that I did this. Yes. So thank you for this advice during the lesson.
Yeah, you're very welcome. But this is, again, the result is really interesting, Gleb, because, again, I hear a lot of people say something similar. Oh, I assume it won't work. I assume someone will say, why are you talking to me? What's your order? I assume this, I think this,
Yes.
I think something else. Just try it, right? I'm not asking you to change your life and to do something crazy, right? That's why people don't do these things, because they have all these expectations and these doubts and these fears. But very often, 90% plus of the time, it's not true and it doesn't happen and everything's fine anyway. But my argument again is, if you do these little things in day-to-day life, speaking to colleagues more in the office, speaking to the waitress when you're ordering a coffee at Starbucks, you can look at their name tag. Hey, John, how are you today? Very often they'll be very happy because no one asks them, no one cares about them. Guess what? When you go to the interview, now you're more familiar with small talk. Now you're more used to it. If you can speak to some random guy in Starbucks, it's probably a bit easier now when you're having the interview at the beginning.
Yeah, totally agree, and that's a great tip. So here, like the question about how to become more comfortable with a small talk, yeah, it's kind of a big thing to approach right away, and you can build your way through these super small talks with the random people
Super small
in your
talk.
life. You see?
I've never heard that before. I love
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, so and that's something that is achievable, yeah, because you have job interviews. I mean, a regular person has job interviews quite rarely, yeah, and you cannot practice it consistently, yeah.
Nope.
So it will be kind of random experience for you. But with your life, if you are going to restaurants and just living your life, you may find the chance to practice this like micro talk, yeah, super small talk, and it will help you to prepare yourself for bigger small talks. So I think that's
Exactly.
a great tip that we can officially give here to our audience today. Yeah. So
Yeah.
before approaching a real small talk, practice these super small talks with a waitress, with a Starbucks guy, with just tell your mind to look for the chance to do it. Yeah, and you will definitely find an opportunity. I've heard in
Absolutely.
English there is a term standing order, right? When you put something in your mind and you are
Yeah.
constantly on the watch for the chance, and you
Exactly.
will be amazed how many chances you will get.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree, Gleb. And the reason why this is so important is because so many people say to me, I'm going to practice for 6 months with you. I'm going to read all these books. I'm going to look at these YouTube videos, and then I'll be ready for the presentation, or then I'll be ready for the interview. No, don't wait. Start to practice now in day-to-day life, and then you will be ready. Okay, people are always waiting for the opportunity. But as you say, the opportunity is everywhere. There's always an opportunity to speak to someone, right? There's always an opportunity to practice small talk. There's always an opportunity to practice the first impression. There's always an opportunity to introduce yourself. It might not be every day in an interview, but you can go to a networking event. If you're in a big city, there will be many networking events. Guess what you're doing in a networking event the first time? You're introducing yourself. Hi, I'm Will. I blah blah
Yes.
blah. Who are you? Oh, hi. There we go, right? If you're nervous about introducing yourself and tell me about yourself, go to networking events. And then you're going to be more comfortable in the real interview.
Yes, totally. Yeah, it's super helpful. You just practicing it, this new skill, and it's actually very fun because like my conversation with the waitress, yeah, I was really nervous, but like instantly I got involved in the conversation and it was fun. So, and I felt like I feel during when I do my sessions with my students. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really into the conversation, and the time flies really fast. So I'm in the flow. So actually, when I started this small talk, instantly I felt in the flow. It was really engaging. Yeah. So and my experience visiting this restaurant become much better. You see. So here it's another point that it's another selling point you may use for these small practices, right? So they are really fun after you actually decide to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It makes your life richer. Yeah.
It does. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. Cool. So that's a great tips for making first impression and to practicing actually first impression, right? So the key is the practice, like in I think all things you do in life, right? So and the question is just to find the proper practice, a small piece that you can do at a time. Yeah, not approach some big project. Like if you are shy, don't start with preparing to a speech for 1,000 of people. Yeah, just approach a random person in a restaurant, and maybe this person you know it like I don't know for years. Yeah, but try to do something different. Yeah, and try to start to train. Yeah, that's
and
what
Gleb,
you can
actually,
do.
this is an issue that a lot of people have, and a lot of people think that this is what they need to do. I'm bad at public speaking. Oh, I need to go and give a speech in front of 1,000 people. Guess what happens? Nothing happens because they're so scared. They procrastinate. They can't even imagine it.
Yes.
It feels terrible. So they don't start and they don't do anything. No, you have to do little steps. So as the saying goes, very famous, Rome was not built in a day. And also a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And this is so true. So if you're really nervous with interviews or public speaking, strike up a conversation with the guy at Starbucks. Number one, first step. Then when you feel more comfortable, maybe have a slightly longer conversation with the woman at the restaurant. Then this, then that, then a networking event, then blah, 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 blah. Eventually, you can give a speech in front of 1,000 people, but you've got 20 steps before that.
Yeah. You have to build your way to this point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
What I also wanted to discuss today, maybe you have some special tips for non-native speakers. By the way, tell me, do you have like experience with working with not native speakers? I mean, I'm obviously a not native speaker of English, and you work with me, so even because of me, you have this experience. But tell me more about this. Maybe you have some great tips for people like me.
Sure. So to be honest, Gleb, the majority of the people who I coach are non-native speakers. Probably 85%, 90% are non-native speakers. So it's actually, I don't have that many native speakers who I'm coaching at the moment. So yeah, I have a lot of experience with that. And one of the first things that I pretty much hear on a daily basis, I don't think you necessarily said this, but most of the people say this, is that they feel anxious and nervous because they are a non-native speaker. Oh, my English isn't good enough.
Yes,
Maybe people
definitely
can't understand me, particularly if they're working with native speakers or they're speaking to native speakers. They're comparing themselves. My English isn't good enough. So that's the first thing that we have to deal with, confidence issues. Okay? Don't worry about it. If you're good enough to speak to me, right, so not have an English lesson, but to have a public speaking lesson or to have an interview in English in the first place, clearly you're good enough, right? It doesn't mean that you're perfect at English, but you haven't got to be perfect.
Yeah.
You've just got to be good enough to communicate, clear that everyone can understand you, and then that's half the battle.
Yeah, and here, so maybe we can come up with some kind of small steps that you can approach to build this confidence. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think number one, of course, is being realistic about your current level. Because again, on a daily basis, I hear people say to me, I'm terrible. My English isn't good enough. No one understands me. And I say, oh, really? Cool. Show me all the evidence. How many hundreds of people have told you that they have no idea what you're saying? And then they're blank and they're like, oh, well, I haven't got any evidence. Oh, okay. So that's the first step. We have to realize that actually our English probably isn't as bad as we think it is. Okay, so get some real feedback from people. You can record yourself. Okay, good example. I was working with this Indian lady. She was saying the same thing. And I said, okay, give me a percentage. Give me some real evidence. Okay, I think that out of every 10 words that I say, 2 words people cannot understand. It's not clear. It's not pronounced well. I mean, that's a huge percentage. Out of every 10 words, 2 words she thought people couldn't understand.
20%.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I actually recorded her speaking. So I recorded the screen for about 3 minutes. And then I said, okay, great. I don't want you to do anything. I want you to look at this video. 3 minutes. And then I said, okay, cool. So out of every 10 words, right, 2 words. Actually, I understood every single word. It was clear. It was fine. So, and I said, yeah, absolutely. I can and then she was like, oh, okay, I guess it's not true then. So that's the first step, I think. People have to stop being so overcritical. Stop worrying so much about your English. It's probably much better than you think. Okay? And look, a lot of people are looking for perfection. oh, I'm a non-native speaker. Sometimes I make a mistake. I'm not perfect. That means I'm not good enough. That means no one can understand me. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means you're human. It means you're a non-native speaker. People still understand you. People don't care usually if you make one or two mistakes. It's no big deal. Okay? So that's the first thing that I'd say.
Thanks.
Again, it's sort of confidence issue. Number two would be practice. Okay, so obviously the more you practice, the more just in general, the more you're listening to, I don't know, English radio stations, TV shows, trying to speak to people, have some English speaking friends, for example. Okay, just have more exposure. Yeah, go to more English speaking interviews if you can, even if you're not interested in the job. Okay, this is a really interesting part, Gleb. If you really want the job, if it's going to change your life, if you must have the job, guess what? You'll put lots of pressure on yourself. But if you
Yes,
apply for jobs,
lots
even
of
that
stress.
maybe you're not that interested in, but you can just go to practice, a lot of people do better because they're not so nervous, because they don't absolutely need the job. So they're more relaxed, and then you
Yes.
can practice more. And now you're creating more evidence in your mind, positive evidence. It's called positive reinforcement, that I've done it. I've had 4 or 5 interviews in English. It's gone okay. It's gone well. I was able to answer the questions. They did understand me. Now you're more confident.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, like, yeah, you may have an interview for the sake of an interview, right? To the sake of practice your English and to practicing all of this and kind of proving yourself that my English is okay. And by
Yes.
the way,
Yeah.
it just came up to my mind that, for example, you can buy a mock interview, yeah, and that's very close to a real interview. Yeah, because you will meet a new person, and even if you know that this is something you paid for, still you will have this anxiety about your English. Yeah, because because before the interview you will be thinking about, what if this person will not understand me? Yeah, it was be embarrassing, etc. Yeah, and after you get into this interview, you will see that everything is okay, the person understands you, and it will help you to build the confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Agree.
love that idea,
By the
Gleb.
way, I have.
Sorry, Gleb, I was just going to say, I absolutely love that idea, right? Pay for a mock interview and practice. The more you practice, you will become more confident, and you will realize, oh, it's okay, because you can get real feedback from this person. So when you have the mock interview,
Yes,
they can
yes.
tell you, right? They can tell you this was good, that was not so good. So yeah, I love that. I think that's a great idea. But also, just a little side point. I know you've got another question. Confident people, okay, even if they don't feel 100% confident or they make a mistake, they will own the mistake. Okay, it is not about never making a mistake. It is about being honest and open about it. So, for example, if you don't feel that confident with your English, you can even say at the beginning of the interview, look, by the way, as you can probably hear, my English isn't perfect. I'm not a native speaker. If there was something you didn't understand, please just ask. Okay? For me, that's
Wow,
powerful. If
that's
you do that in a confident way, it shows that I'm not so anxious, I'm not so nervous. It's, look, I might make a mistake. I'm okay with that. Just ask me. It's no big deal. Right? And I think people will think, oh, okay, that's great.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And by the way, my question was kind of about this. Yeah, because I was struggling with something like when I enter an English conversation, I kind of change my identity. So I try to kind of pretend to be another person, and I feel awkward about like making grammatical mistakes or having an accent. Yeah, and it kind of builds a wall between me and the person I speak to. You see, and what you just said helps to connect. Yeah, you share, and you actually you right away start to be a human.
Yes.
And a real you. You do not hold this poker face. And I think that what I was struggling for a long time, and still struggling a little bit now, especially if we talk about business. When I approach someone for like with a business purpose,
Sure.
it feels like this. So I want to be more perfect kind of than I am. Yeah, so that's here. Maybe again some tips how to overcome it and how to let yourself to be non-native speaker. Yeah, let's call it this way.
Okay, good comment. Good comment. How to let yourself be a non-native speaker. So
Yes.
So one of the most powerful points, which I mentioned, but we can go into more details, is to own the fact that you're a non-native speaker.
Yeah.
So you have to accept it, okay? I know this is difficult for a lot of people because particularly the people I speak to, they have very high standards. They're perfectionists.
Yes.
They want to be perfect. They don't want to show weakness. So I'm not sure if you remember, I'm not sure if your audience are familiar with this, but maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, this video went viral. It was on the BBC. A guy was being interviewed. It was a virtual talk like this. And the guy was very serious. He had the suit on. The door opened and I think his daughter came in, right? And then eventually the mother had to come in, drag the daughter out. There's all this noise and he's so awkward and he's pretending that nothing's happening in the background. And are you familiar with this? Have you seen it?
No, I think I haven't seen the video.
Okay. So for me, this summarizes exactly what we're talking about here. Instead of pretending that nothing's going on, everything's perfect, I'll just blank out what's going on behind me. It's fake. It didn't work. It went viral. Everyone thought that the guy was an idiot. All he had to do was say, let's say the woman he was speaking to was called Julia. Julia, sorry, I do apologize. What is that saying? Never work with children or animals. Just give me a second. Hey, darling, sorry, daddy's a bit busy. Just give me a second. Okay. Anyway, Julia, where were we? Okay, yeah, sure. So, blah, 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 blah. Okay.
Wow.
I know it's a bit awkward. He would still feel a bit awkward, but that's so much more confident and powerful. Okay. It's calling out the mistake, calling out the fact that, look, David, I'm a non-native speaker, but it's okay. I'm going to do my best. If I make a mistake or if you can't understand me, please ask. No problem at all. You're showing confidence there that, you know what? I'm not perfect. I'm a non-native speaker, but I'm okay with that. I accept it. I'm not here to demonstrate 100% perfect English. I'm here to demonstrate why I should have the job, why I've got the skills that you need, why I have the experience, why I'm a good person. And people don't really care about your level of English, obviously, as long as it's reasonable. If you can't speak English at all, obviously that's an issue. But you wouldn't be going for an English-speaking job if you couldn't speak English. So clearly your level is good enough at this stage. Okay, so I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Yeah, to own the situation, to accept it. Yeah, and that's it's very important, and it's hard to understand. By the way, how to do it. Yeah, and many people haven't ever think about this. You know, like that. We need to accept it. We need to own it, right? So instead, they are trying to be like this guy who was pretending that nothing happening, and it was chaos around him, as you said. Yeah, so it's like it looks much more stupid than to own your level of English, let's say. Yeah, so and pretending that you never make any mistakes and you have no accent, etc. Yeah, so it's great, and I think maybe it's for a non-native speaker, it's a good icebreaker during the job interview. So you may start with that, as you said. You may kind of say, look, I'm not native speaker, I'm telling you this because I'm worrying about it. I'm a little bit anxious about it right now. I'm nervous. Yeah, and simultaneously you own the situation and you share something personal about you. Yeah, and again, you kill two birds with one stone. You teach yourself to own the situation, and also you help to build a connection at the same time.
Absolutely, because you're being vulnerable and you're showing that you're a normal human being. You're not trying to be perfect. You're not trying to show the guy that you're the best person in the world. They don't want that. They want a real human being. They want someone who is honest, who is transparent, who is able to demonstrate who they are. Because a lot of people try to be fake in interviews. They try to pretend that they're so incredible.
Yes.
People don't like that, right? So just a bit of a different example, okay? I'm not sure whether some of your audience can relate to this, but a good example, I have a friend who used to be a dating coach in Australia. And he always used to say, and I've had this experience as well, I know you're not in this situation, Gleb, and neither am I now, but many years ago when I was dating, right, going on dates, if you go on a date with, let's say, a woman who you think is much higher level than you, okay? She's way more beautiful. Guess what?
Out of your league, you want to say?
Out of your league,
right?
kind of thing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
out of your league. A lot of guys, they will feel nervous and they will try to pretend that they're incredible and they've got this car and they're making all this money and they will try to impress the girl. Okay, 9 times out of 10, the girl's not interested because she doesn't want a guy who's trying to impress her and try to prove something and try to boast about how much money he's got and the car and this and that. Very often, women like guys who are themselves. You know what? I haven't got all the money. I haven't got the incredible car. I don't care. This is who I am. If you like me, great. If not, great. It doesn't matter. Now, I'm not saying every girl likes that. Some girls maybe want the money and the car, but a lot of genuine girls would like that. They prefer that. They want an honest guy. They want a guy who's not fake and trying to prove something. I think it's the same in an interview. Okay, to a certain extent. Obviously, you have to show that you're good and you're competent, but I think that's the missing ingredient that people miss. It's not about being fake and pretending that you're the best coder in the world. No, it's about being honest, about who you are and what you can and can't do.
Yes, I totally agree, and I like that during this interview we had even date advice. Yeah, so I cannot think that it could be even better right now. It's amazing. Thank you. And I by the way I often compare job interviews with dating. Yeah, so and because when my students ask me about job interview, what I usually say if you don't like the person, don't try to win the person. Right, just be yourself, and if they don't like you, then farewell. That's what that's what I advise about job interviews, and to it is not worth it to fake your personality in order to win someone you don't like your advice about the girls, if you want a genuine authentic girl, you need to be yourself. There is no other way. And
exactly.
Same for job interviews. So it's much better to drop this poker face, this pretending. So that's great. What I want to ask more, and actually I think that I want to keep the interview under an hour, and it was a great interview already. So what I want to ask as let's make it a conclusion of the interview, and right here, thank you for the conversation. It was super excited, and again 1 hour went like a minute for me during this interview. So and
I could talk for hours, me, Gleb. I think you could as well. So I've really enjoyed it.
And for me, the sign of a flow, people call this state a flow, when you engage in something that is so interesting for you that you cannot see the time passing by. So for me, it's a sign of equality of the content we are creating right now. So that's super cool. Thank you. Here.
You're very welcome.
What I want to ask here as a conclusion, maybe you may recommend some other books or some resources, some YouTube channels that you like, that you use for inspire yourself to grow as a public speaking coach. And
Excuse me. Okay, this is a good example here. Just based on what we were saying before, I coughed instead of acting all weird. Excuse me, I coughed. It's normal. I'm alive. It's okay, right? So that's just to prove that point. And so, good question, Gleb. So obviously,
you are walking your talk, right?
But this is just to finish the final point. I'm a native speaker and I make mistakes sometimes, particularly when I'm tired. Sometimes I can have 6, 7, 8 hours of sessions a day. By the end, sometimes I can barely talk because I'm exhausted. And I just say, sorry guys, it's been a super long day. Let me just start again. And it's okay. No, not once has anyone said, oh my God, you're not a good coach. I thought you were so perfect. No one said it, right? Everyone understands that it's normal. So that's just to sort of prove the previous point, okay? I make mistakes and I'm a native speaker. So it doesn't matter. I promise you, it does not matter. Okay. I think you've got another point, Gleb.
Thank you. Here, I want to make a comment. That's it's like for me, it's something that I can practice more, because with my students, I never talk about that I'm tired or that something is happening with me. I even rarely speak about that I'm like not feeling quite well. Let's say when I have some kind of flu or something like this. Yeah. So I try to completely isolate this part of my life from my customers. Yeah, but I think as you just shared, it builds a better connection. Yeah, and no one is going to be disappointed because you are like a little bit tired. I mean, it doesn't mean that the session you are going to have will not be as powerful as it planned to be. Yeah, because if I was really tired, I was just canceled the session, right? But if I'm here and I'm talking to you, I'm ready to do my best work. Yeah, but and I can be tired at the same time because I'm an experienced teacher and I can do it anyway, even if I'm not feeling really well right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe that's something that you can practice and you can start to implement. So yeah, really, really good point, Gleb.
Totally.
Really good point. Yeah. So
thank you for this tip.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help. So I know we mentioned the book earlier, but How to Win Friends and Influence People. Honestly, I would recommend it. I know it's an old book. It's from the 1930s, but there's so many points in there that are still very relevant. So things that we've mentioned already. Smile, use someone's name, show genuine interest in the other person. Now, that is also kind of related to small talk, but just in general, okay? In a job interview, show interest in the person at the beginning. How's your day been? Have you had a busy day? Oh, it's Friday. Whew. Any plans for the weekend? You know, something like this. And then showing genuine interest in the job as well. You know, the questions at the end. Asking questions about the job. It shows that you're interested, that you want to be there. It's not just a job you've applied for and you don't care about. So yeah, 100%. That book, I think, start there. If you do have anxiety, there's a book called Dare. Don't know if you've heard about this. D-A-R-E.
Yeah, by the way, we discussed it during our sessions, and it's a coincidence that today I started to read this book because I finished another one, and I decided to start with this book, and I started to read it, and the introduction is very engaging. It right away speaks to the point, you know, and I related to what the author is telling here. So like I've read probably like a couple of pages, but I already like the book. So thank you for this recommendation, and I think yes, here we may use it as a recommendation as well. Okay,
yeah, absolutely. And then the final recommendation. So again, I'm walking the talk here. I can't remember the name because I read the book many years ago. So I've got it written down here. If I was perfect, I would be stuttering. I'd be, what's the name of the book? I don't care. Okay. The book is called Why You by James Reed. Have you heard about it?
No, I haven't heard about it. What is this book about?
Yeah, so it is specifically related to interviews. So there are a lot of the most common interview questions, and he goes through how to answer these questions in the strongest way. And he also mentions everything that we've talked about today: how to create a good first impression, how to be less nervous, how to ask powerful questions at the end of the interview. So when they ask you, do you have any questions for me? He's got a list of powerful questions, how to answer them, why you should answer them, why you should ask them, sorry. So, like I said, it's been years since I read the book, but I would recommend that. I think that's really good for interviews as well.
Why me?
Yes. So why?
Yes,
No. Sorry. Why you?
that's the name of the book.
Why
Why?
you?
Why you? I see. Yeah.
Why
Why you?
you?
Yeah,
Question
and
mark.
it's a yeah, it's a collection of tips for engaging in job interviews, right?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. I think that's a very specific thing that we can use to learn about how to approach exactly this process. Yeah, thank you. That's a great advice, and I will add these books to the description of the video, so you may find them in the description. And also, I will add the link to Will's channel in the description. So if you liked our conversation, you may find what Will has to say at his channel. Yeah. And Will, you are going to publish it on your channel as well, right?
Yes, I am, Gleb. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, if some of your listeners are interested in learning something about data analysis, data science, or programming, so I'm providing this teaching. So you may also find my YouTube channel, and maybe I will be helpful for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Absolutely. I would highly recommend it as well.
Thank you. So I think this is it for the interview, and now we may say goodbye to the listeners. So and I will turn it off. So let's do it. Yeah. So
Sure.
bye bye. Thank you for listening.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Will. Bye bye.